Have you ever committed an error that you deeply regret and wish you could take back? Here we will talk about traveling back in time. But before we continue, make sure to our channel for more amazing videos. The possibility of going back in time and changing things that went wrong in the past is one of the many things that makes the idea of time travel so intriguing. If you had access to a time machine, as is frequently depicted in works of science fiction, nothing would be permanent anymore since you could always go back and change it. But is it feasible to travel through time in our universe, or is that something that only exists in science fiction? General relativity is the source of the contemporary understanding that we have of time and causality. The idea that was developed by the theoretical physicist Albert Einstein integrates space and time into a single entity that is referred to as spacetime. In the year 1905, Albert Einstein formulated his theory of special relativity. Together with his later expansion, the theory of general relativity, it is now considered one of the fundamental principles upon which contemporary physics is built. The theory of special relativity analyzes the connection between space and time for bodies moving at constant speeds along a straight path. The condensed version of the idea has a simplistic appearance that is misleading. To begin, everything is evaluated in relation to something else. To put it another way, there is no absolute frame of reference. This means that everything is measured. The second important point is that the speed of light does not change. No matter what happens or from what vantage point it is measured, it always remains the same. And finally, the speed of light is the maximum possible velocity for any object. Using general relativity, scientists have spent decades attempting to answer the question of whether or not it is feasible to travel through time. It has come to light that there is a way to formulate equations that not only describe traveling through time but are also entirely compatible and consistent with relativity. Yet, physics is not mathematics, and equations are devoid of any significance if they do not match anything that exists in the real world. Reasons against time. There are two primary concerns that lead us to believe that these equations may not be applicable in the real world. The first problem is a logistical one. It appears that constructing a time machine requires exotic matter, which can be defined as anything that possesses negative energy. The matter with negative energy is not something that can be found laying around. All of the matter that we come into contact with in our day-to-day lives possesses positive energy. We know from quantum mechanics that it is theoretically possible to make such matter, but only in extremely minute quantities and for only very brief periods of time. On the other hand, there is no evidence to suggest that it is difficult to produce exotic matter in numbers suitable for use. In addition, it's possible that new equations will be found that will make time travel possible without the use of strange materials. Because of this, the problem could simply be a limitation of the technology we have available or of our knowledge of quantum mechanics. The second major problem is not nearly as practical but is more fundamental. It is the realization that time travel appears to be inconsistent with logic, which manifests itself in the form of time travel paradoxes. There are many other kinds of paradoxes like this, but the ones that are the most difficult to solve are the ones that involve consistency. Consistency paradoxes, a common motif in the genre of science fiction, occur whenever there is an action that leads to changing the past, but the change itself prohibits this event from happening in the first place. Consider, for instance, the possibility that I would get into my time machine, use it to travel back in time by 5 minutes, and then demolish the machine as soon as I arrived in the past. Since I was able to smash the time machine, I can't use it 5 minutes later. But if I can't use the time machine, I can't travel through time to stop it from happening in the first place. As a result, it has not been eradicated, which means that I can go across time to do so. To put it another way, the time machine will be ruined if and only if it is not ruined beforehand. This scenario is illogical and paradoxical given that it can't be destroyed and not be destroyed at the same time. But science does provide some evidence that time travel is possible. For instance, the theory of special relativity developed by the physicist Albert Einstein posits that time is an illusion that shifts relative to an observer. An observer who is moving at a speed close to that of light will perceive time and all of its consequences, boredom, aging, etc., at a far slower rate than an observer who is standing still. Because of this, astronaut Scott Kelly aged marginally more slowly during his year-long mission in space compared to his identical twin brother, who remained on Earth during the mission. There are other scientific theories about time travel, such as some weird physics that arise around wormholes, black holes, and string theory. One such theory is that time travel is impossible. Yet, time travel is still primarily the purview of the ever-expanding canon of science fiction media, including but not limited to books, films, television shows, comic books, video games, and other mediums. Time travel in its most concrete form can be derived from these few elementary premises. Time will pass more slowly for an observer who is moving through space at a high velocity compared to an observer who is not moving through space at a high velocity. In spite of the fact that we cannot propel humans to speeds approaching those of light, we are able to place them on board the International Space Station, where they will travel at 17,500 miles per hour, 28,160 kilometers per hour. Scott Kelly, an astronaut, followed in the footsteps of his twin brother and fellow astronaut, Mark Kelly, who was born before. Scott Kelly was in orbit for a total of 520 days, while Mark spent a total of 54 days in space. The age difference between the two men was really exacerbated by the disparity in the rate at which they experienced the passage of time throughout the course of their respective lifetimes. Getting rid of the contradictions. The idea that paradoxes can be made is a widespread fallacy that occurs frequently in science fiction. For this very reason, time travelers are typically cautioned not to make large alterations to the past and to steer clear of encountering versions of themselves from the past. Instances of this can be found in a variety of movies that include time travel, such as the trilogy titled Back to the Future. Yet, in physics, a paradox is not an occurrence that can take place. Rather, it is a concept that exists solely in theory and indicates that there is an inconsistency in the theory itself. To put it another way, the existence of consistency paradoxes argues against the viability of time travel, rather than merely suggesting that such a journey would be fraught with peril. Stephen Hawking, a theoretical physicist, used this as one of the inspirations for formulating his chronology protection conjecture, which claims that time travel should be impossible. Having said that, this hypothesis has not been verified as of yet. In addition, the universe would be a much more interesting place if, rather than preventing time travel because it would create paradoxes, we could just get rid of the paradoxes themselves. This would make time travel possible again. The self-consistency conjecture of theoretical physicist Igor Dmitrievich Novikov is an attempt to resolve time travel paradoxes. This conjecture essentially states that you can travel to the past, but you cannot change it. This is one attempt to resolve time travel paradoxes. The concepts of time travel and parallel timelines are frequently intertwined in works of science fiction. Nevertheless, we now have evidence indicating that these concepts must also be intertwined in the scientific world. Time travel may be feasible, according to general relativity and quantum mechanics. But, if this is the case, then there must be the possibility of several histories existing simultaneously. This is it for today's video. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed watching our video.